If you told me a year ago I'd be interviewing to care for a haunted doll locked in a glass case, I would have laughed and asked what drugs you were on. But here I was, sitting in the cracked leather chair across from Father Dunn, a pale, soft-spoken man in his 60s who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. The office was cramped and smelled like burned incense and mold. The only light came from a green desk lamp, which flickered as he skimmed my resume. "Whoa, Clara Moore. You worked in historical restoration?" "Mostly museums. I handled sensitive artifacts. A lot of preservation work." He nodded slowly. "And your knowledge of spiritual containment?" I hesitated. "I took a theology minor in college. I've read about possession cases, if that's what you mean." "I mean this," he said, sliding a photo across the desk. I recognized it immediately. Everyone did. The Annabelle doll. Faded white dress, red yarn hair, painted smile. Locked inside a glass cabinet with a sign that read, "Warning, positively do not open." Even through the glossy print, the eyes seemed to look through me. I swallowed hard. "I thought she was under permanent watch. With the Warrens Museum shut down." "The museum still exists," he interrupted, "but only in fragments. After Lorraine passed, the state fought to shut us down, said it was a public safety risk." He said it with no trace of irony. "Now we operate underground. Private collections, secure vaults. You won't find our address on Google Maps." I should have walked out right then. I should have trusted my gut when it twisted in the pit of my stomach. But rent was late. My bank account was almost empty. And this job paid triple what any museum gig had ever offered. So, what exactly would I be doing? Monitoring Annabelle, ensuring her case remains sealed, daily cleansing rituals, recording anomalies. Like, if she moves, or speaks, or bleeds. I laughed. He didn't. "You're serious? You wouldn't believe what that doll has done, Miss Moore. What she still does. The case isn't to protect her, it's to protect us." I left the interview with a signed NDA, a stack of prayer cards, and a handwritten list of containment protocols. 2 days later, I moved into the private annex behind the new Warrens archive, a half-renovated, climate-controlled bunker beneath a chapel in Connecticut. The hallway to the storage room was lined with crosses. Literally, all 4 walls covered in them. The heavy door at the end required both a key and a retinal scan. Inside was a single case spotlighted under red emergency lighting. Glass so thick it looked like a bank vault. There she sat. Annabelle. She didn't look scary at first. Not like in the movies. More like a forgotten antique you'd find at your grandmother's house. But something about her eyes, not just painted on, more like waiting. My first night on the job, I reviewed the official care rules. Typed, numbered, laminated. Annabelle containment protocols, strict. Never open the case, under any circumstance. Never touch the glass with bare hands. Recite the cleansing prayer every evening at 7 p.m. sharp. Do not speak to Annabelle. If you hear her speak, do not respond. Report it immediately. If the case appears cracked, leave the room and call Father Dunn. No overnight guests, no photography, no mirrors. Easy enough, I thought. The room was quiet, cold, and frankly, boring. Oh, I watched the case through a camera feed in my quarters. Logged her status in a little black book each night. And for the first week, nothing happened. No sounds, no movements, no bleeding. Just a dusty glass case with a stupid-looking doll in it. But boredom breeds arrogance. And arrogance makes you careless. I started skipping parts of the ritual, reading the prayer like a grocery list. Sometimes I'd look into her eyes too long. Sometimes I'd talk to her, jokingly. At first. "Rough night, huh? You look extra cursed today. If you blink, I'm out of here. What's it like being famous?" And one night, I said something I shouldn't have. "You're not real." The lights flickered. The red overhead light snapped. The temperature dropped by 5 degrees in seconds. And then, through the feed on my monitor, I saw it. A single crack thin as a hair snaking up the inside of the glass case. I ran. Back into the chamber. The lights sputtered overhead. The crosses on the wall rattled. The doll hadn't moved. Not visibly, but the crack was real. I reached out without thinking, bare hands on the glass, to feel it, to make sure. And in that moment, her eyes moved. Just a flick, just enough. I fell back, gasping. The cameras went black. So did the lights. And in the pitch dark, I heard the tiniest giggle. High-pitched. Close. Too close. After the lights came back on, I did what any rational person would do. I blamed the power grid. Then I blamed my imagination. And finally, I blamed exhaustion. Because the alternative that I'd watched a doll's eyes shift and heard it giggle in the dark was simply unacceptable. But the crack in the glass, that was harder to explain away. Thin, jagged, right where I'd touched it. And no matter how I rubbed or polished or shined, it remained. It hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. I called Father Dunn that morning. His voice was tired before I even spoke. Did you break a rule? I hesitated. Maybe. Which one? I might have said something stupid. Did you speak to her? Silence. Clara. Yes. And you touched the glass? I didn't mean. You never touch the glass. Ever. That's a seal. And speaking to her? That gives her license. License to what? To answer. That night, I reread the rules more carefully. Each line, each word now felt heavier, like scripture carved in stone. Especially #4 and #5. Do not speak to Annabelle. If you hear her speak, do not respond. Report it immediately. But report it to who? No one was around. Father Dunn was 3 towns over and only visited on Sundays. I was alone in that museum 6 nights a week with her. Over the next few days, small things started to shift. The camera in the storage room, the one watching her case, would cut to static around 3 a.m. every night, always at the same time. I checked the wiring, rebooted the software. Still static. On day 11, I found the black book, the logbook I updated daily had been written in. Not by me. 2 words in the middle of the page. I remember. Scrawled in red ink. Except I didn't own a red pen. I searched the storage room, the cabinets, the annex. Nothing. Everything locked, nothing broken. But the air smelled like candle wax and copper. Like blood. Still, I didn't leave. I told myself I was being paranoid, that someone was pranking me. Maybe Father Dunn had staff I didn't know about. But deep down, I knew. Something had shifted. The glass didn't hum the way it used to. The air inside the case was fogging up in strange shapes, fingerprints from the inside. And the doll? She no longer faced forward. She was slowly turning. By the end of the second week, the rules began to feel less like guidelines and more like a ritual. At exactly 7 p.m., I'd kneel by the case and recite the cleansing prayer. 3 times. Eyes closed, hands folded. But I could feel her watching me, even when I didn't look. Especially when I didn't look. I avoided mirrors, per the rules. But I started to see her anyway. In reflections. The microwave door, the window, even the blank TV screen. Always in the background, just standing, not moving, but watching. Then came the night I saw her smile. Only for a second. A twitch at the corners of that stitched mouth. But it was real. Too real. That was the same night I dreamt of her. Standing at the foot of my bed. Red yarn hair, tangled and wet. Dress soaked with something thick and dark. She reached for me and whispered, "You open the door." I woke up screaming. The room was cold, the window wide open. But the strangest thing, the laminated rule sheet was gone, completely vanished. I rushed to the chamber. Her case was intact, the lights were on, but she was sitting differently. Head tilted, left instead of right. Arms no longer resting in her lap, but bent slightly, as if she just moved. and her eyes, still, focused, on me. I backed out slowly, locked the door. And for the first time since I took the job, I cried. Something had come loose. I treated her like a joke. And now she was awake. The next morning, a new paper was slid under my door. No handwriting, just a typed message. One line. Rules are not for her, they are for you. I tried to convince myself I was losing my mind. I reread the rule list, the warnings, the strange typed message. Rules are not for her, they are for you. The words rang in my ears all day, like a curse I'd accidentally invited in. I tried to focus on the mundane tasks, checking humidity levels in the annex, inspecting artifacts, doing the nightly log entry, but everything felt off. It wasn't just the Annabelle chamber anymore. The whole place felt sick. The walls seemed to breathe. The crosses on the hallway walls had begun to hang crooked, as if something had brushed past them. I straightened one and felt heat radiate off the wood as though it had just been pulled from a fire. That night I entered the chamber exactly at 7 p.m. But this time I brought something extra, a voice recorder. I don't know why I did it, maybe curiosity, maybe desperation, but something in me needed proof. I placed the recorder on the floor, hit record, and began the cleansing prayer. My voice sounded brittle, robotic in the stale air. Halfway through the second recitation, I paused. Something rustled, a faint shuffling cloth on glass. I looked up. Annabelle hadn't moved. Not obviously, but the crack in the glass was wider. I finished the prayer, turned off the recorder, got out. Later, in the safety of my quarters, I played the audio back. For the first few minutes, it was just my voice, flat, repeating the holy words. Then came a faint crackle, and something else, a second voice. Not mine, high-pitched, childlike, breathless, whispering with me, repeating my words, mocking them. And deliver us from evil. Deliver us from evil. From evil. From me. Then laughter. Not human. Something wet, gurgled, like it came from behind a wall of water. The audio cut off. I stared at the recorder, cold sweat pouring down my back. I wanted to burn it, smash it, deny it ever happened. Instead, I turned it back on. Just once more. This time, there was only silence. And at the end, in the final second of tape, a tiny voice whispered, "Clara, I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't." Every shadow felt longer. Every sound felt closer. I wrapped my bed in rosary beads I found in one of the archive drawers and kept the hall lights on. Still, at exactly 3 a.m., my lights flickered out. The door creaked. And on my mirror, which I kept covered, per the rules someone had written in fog, "She's not inside anymore." I ran to the chamber. The hallway was ice cold. My breath fogged in the air. When I reached the door, the security scanner wouldn't respond. The keypad lights blinked red access denied. I pounded on the frame, screaming, "Let me in! I need to see!" And then I heard it, from inside the chamber, the unmistakable sound of glass shattering. A security override finally let me in. The air was thick and burning. Candles I'd never lit flickered in the corners. And the case was wide open. Shards of tempered glass littered the floor like crystal bones. The doll was gone. Gone. No one else had keys. No one else knew the codes. There were no forced entries. And yet, Annabelle had escaped. I searched the entire annex, room by room. She wasn't in the chapel. Not in the storage hall. Not in the ritual room. But every space I entered felt violated, chilled, like something was slithering just a few feet behind me. Then I heard it, in my quarters, the recorder, playing on its own, repeating the same segment. From me, from me, from me. I found the doll sitting on my bed, hands folded, head tilted, smiling. There was a note beside her, scrawled in that same childlike typewriter print. You talked, you touched, you broke the seal. Now I'm free. That's when I realized I hadn't just failed to keep her in. I had become her invitation out. After I found her on my bed, I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed the doll with a pair of tongs, stuffed her in a pillowcase, and ran her back to the containment chamber, what was left of it. The case was shattered, and the protective relics had been moved. Not broken, not stolen. Moved, laid out in a circle on the floor. At the center of it, I dropped the doll. She slumped over softly, harmlessly. But I knew better. I called Father Dunn. No answer. I called again. Voicemail. On the third try, someone picked up, but it wasn't him. A woman's voice. Slow, distant. He can't come to the phone. He's in the walls now. Click. I left everything behind. Keys, binder, clearance badge. By noon, I was on a bus out of town with nothing but a backpack. But I was wrong to think leaving the museum would end it. It followed me. The first night in my motel, I unplugged the TV, turned every mirror to the wall, and stacked the dresser against the door. Still, I dreamed of her. Not just standing, but walking. I saw her legs bend backwards like broken twigs. Saw her crawl across ceilings like a spider. In the dream, she leaned over me and whispered, "Now you live in the case." I woke up to blood on the bathroom mirror. Just one word, stay. In the days that followed, strange things began happening around me. At a diner, every single spoon twisted in my hand. At a gas station, the cashier passed out after touching my palm. I tried to board a train, but the doors locked, and every screen showed Annabelle's face smiling softly. I realized then it wasn't just me being haunted. I was the haunting now. That night in my new room, I received a package. No return label. Inside, the doll. Eyes wide, hands folded, and a note. "You're doing so well. Let me help." Beneath it was my voice recorder, the one I'd used in the chamber. I hit play. The static fizzled and crackled. Then a voice emerged. "You're mine now." Then laughter, deeper than before. Not a child, not a girl, a woman, mocking, ancient. And then something worse. A second voice, lower, male, breathing in sync. Not one entity, but two. I returned to the museum that night, or what was left of it. The chapel was burned down, blackened stone, charred crosses. No sign of Father Dunn, just ash. And on the back wall, scratched deep into the stone, "She is not alone." That's when I understood. Annabelle didn't escape by accident. She had help. And I was never the target. I was the vessel. I wasn't her caretaker. I was her carrier. I returned to my childhood home in Maine. Not because it was safe, but because it was far, a final retreat. I boarded up the windows, burned incense, sprinkled salt under the doors. It didn't matter. She came anyway. The knock came at 3 a.m., 3 gentle raps on the front door. I didn't answer. I knew better. But in the reflection of the peephole glass, I saw the doll. Not just sitting anymore. Standing. That was when I stopped eating. Stopped sleeping. I became a shadow in my own house. Afraid of doorways. Afraid of closets. Afraid of mirrors. Because every time I blinked too long, she appeared. Sometimes just a flicker in the corner. Other times, closer. More solid. One night I woke up with scratches across my neck, thin and symmetrical, as though made by tiny fingers. And always, that same whisper. "You broke the seal." I knew what she wanted. I knew the ritual. In the Warrens' text, buried between exorcism rites and Latin invocations, I remembered something. To rebind a spirit, one must offer a willing vessel. Flesh must replace flesh. Soul must contain soul. She didn't want me to watch her anymore. She wanted me to take her place. That night, I lit a ring of candles in my basement, dug out the old recorder, held the doll in my hands, stiff and weightless like a cold corpse. I looked into those painted eyes and whispered, "I'm not afraid of you." She blinked, then smiled. The flames surged. The wind inside the house rose with it even underground. I began the incantation. Latin, Hebrew, nonsense syllables from the Warren's notes. The doll twitched, twice. And then she spoke aloud, not in my mind, not on tape, with her mouth. "You'll do nicely." The candles exploded. My ears rang. I collapsed. When I woke up, it was quiet. The basement was dark. The doll was gone. But in her place was me, another Clara, curled up in the corner, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. A perfect copy, wearing my clothes, breathing shallow. She looked at me and smiled. I screamed, but no sound came out. My arms wouldn't move. My legs wouldn't respond. I could only watch as she stood, as she stepped over me, as she walked upstairs, as she became me. 1 month later. If you're reading this, it's already too late. My name is Clara Moore, or it was. I don't know where I am anymore. Trapped, between mirrors, between voices. She walks in my skin now. She smiles with my mouth. She signs documents with my name. And no one notices. People think the Annabelle doll is still missing. They're wrong. She doesn't need the doll anymore. She wears me. So if someone knocks at your door at 3 a.m., if she says her name is Clara Moore, if she smiles too long, do not let her in. Because once you do, she's already inside.